You clicked on this video because you're interested in color matching something on your vehicle, whether it be your bumper, your door handles, your mirrors, valence, anything like that, and I'm going to show you how to do it. With this move bumper I have right here for my 99 F250, as you can tell, the bumper is off the truck, the stock bumper is sitting over here. In my last video, I fully welded and primered this bumper right here for this truck. Now I say primer, but this is not the primer that we're going to be using. I just put this on here last night so it wouldn't rust. I had this fully sanded last night from welding it, and I did not want this to have any rust on it as I planned on painting it today. The only thing I don't have pictured here is my clear coat. It is in the garage, but we have our primer, we have our color coat, we have our gun, we have our reducer we have our activator for our primer. This is a RTU base coat, so it's ready to use. I don't have to put any activator or anything like that in it. So we're going to be spraying this first, but I am going to rough up this primer right here. I have some 1000 grit on this block sander, and we're just going to rough up this bumper and the primer that is on it and get it ready to be sprayed. It is very uneven. It came out of a rattle can last night. I just wanted something on here that was not going to allow the bumper to rust overnight from the dew, moisture, anything like that. So what I'm doing here is just block sanding the bumper. I've got some 600 grit on a block sander and I worked my way up to 1000. This is rattle can primer that is on the bumper. I only sprayed this on because I knew it would get surface rust overnight and I didn't want to have to sand the surface rust off. Either way you look at it, I'm having to sand the bumper. Didn't mean to catch it lacking there, just had to shake some primer up and get it all mixed together. Then we poured it in our mixing cup, got it all blended together with our paint stick, got it poured in the gun, and this is where it started to go downhill, where I was not properly equipped for this job. So I knew I had a gun that I could use for primer. What I did not think about was not having a pressure regulator. I tried to set it on my air compressor at around 40 psi, but going through the 50-foot hose, it was losing pressure and only spraying out around 20, and then my air compressor wasn't keeping up with it properly set at that psi. So I kind of just had to bump the psi all the way up to 90, which is what's normally set on the air compressor. If I could go back and do this over again, which I'm probably going to, would definitely get a pressure regulator for the gun, because that would make spraying the primer a million times better. And then we had to come in with the sander and sand down the primer because it was spraying such a high pressure. It was spitting and everything onto the bumper, which in the end result really affected the finish of this. If I could have laid down some smooth primer, would have turned out a whole lot better. But we block sanded with 1000, tried to get it as smooth as possible, but I finally just gave up because I'm trying to do this in between naps of when my daughter is sleeping. So we kind of just had to hit a point of this is going to be good enough and send it from there. We have this thing as sanded down as I'm going to do. There's still some areas right here in the corners that are a little bit more textured than I would like, but you know, this is a back bumper. This is going to get stood on. This is going to be right next to a trailer all the time. So I'm 100% positive this thing's going to get scratched. It's going to get beat up. I'm not entirely too worried about it. Can confirm a month later, I'm finally editing this video. Bumper already has a massive scrape on it on the driver's side. So, like I figured, it was going to get scratched, beat up. It's done on a work truck, but back to the video. Yesterday I had some issues with my paint gun. This paint gun hasn't been used in about 2 years, and I've debated on buying a new one, which I think I'm going to do very soon. But we're going to see how well we can do with this. It's not going to be perfect, but we're working with what we got. Okay, so what you see me doing here is wiping down the bumper with some paint prep just to prepare it to let the paint adhere properly. And then I'm spraying the paint. And I know there's going to be someone in the comments saying you need a respirator, blah, blah, blah. You see all the paint flying away from me. I'm painting outside in like 10-mile-an-hour winds. Barely any of it is actually going in my nose. It's all blowing across my yard and the property behind me, everything. Don't worry about the paint. And then we got our second coat of paint going on. I started noticing that the paint was clogging in the gun, spitting it out and leaving spots on the bumper. So it's not perfect by any means, nor am I happy with it. So I just finished up the second coat on the bumper. And I know I'm gonna get flamed in the comments, guys. You guys see this truck sitting right here and you're like, oh my God, it's getting covered in overspray. And it definitely is, but let me show you something. You see the hood? You wanna see something even worse? See the roof? Yeah, this 6-year-old paint job right here that was done by a local shop failed within 3 years. So I'm not worried about this paint. This truck has to be completely sanded and repainted. It needs a new bed on it. They replaced this the bed side on the passenger side. It's completely uneven. Tack welds are all broken. It's falling off. Guys, this whole truck needs to be repainted. Don't worry about it sitting right here. If I was worried about this paint, I would not have put this right here. I have over half an acre of property to put this bumper on. I would have put it somewhere else if I was concerned about this paint, but I'm not. The paint has to be replaced. These wheels need to be sanded and polished. I'm not worried about overspray because everything that overspray is landing on needs to be sanded to begin with. Don't think I'm an idiot, although I am painting in direct sunlight. I'm slightly retarded, but don't worry about it. This is gonna come out mediocre. Listen, when you can't get any shade, you gotta somewhat make your own. So I've got a piece of OSB sitting up here. We got 3/4 of the bumper in the shade. It's the best I can do. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna stretch the truth or anything like that. This is my fault. I did not take care of my equipment the last time I used it. The last time I used my paint gun was probably about 2 years ago, and it's got old paint in it. Some air holes are clogged and things like that. My paint reservoir itself has a bunch of old paint in it. It's flaking up and clogged and stuff. My air pressure regulator, you know, it's like 4 years old at this point. It doesn't work very well. So a lot of the errors in the paint on this is my fault. So take that in as you will. I will be fixing this in the future. I plan on repainting my truck this winter. I'm gonna buy a new paint gun. I'm gonna buy all the appropriate stuff to take care of it, and we're gonna respray the entire truck. So we will respray this bumper as well as the front bumper then. This will at least get it on the truck for now. And to be honest, it really doesn't look that bad. It just depends on the angle you look at it, and the angle that it is on these sawhorses is not how it's going to be on the truck. So this thing is glass smooth. I mean, like, the clear coat is super thick, but all these ruffles that you see is where the primer wasn't sanded smooth enough. Then I sprayed the paint wasn't laid thick enough, so it kind of left these tighter stripes, I guess you could say. Honestly, I will say it looks worse on the camera than it does in person, but I am my own worst critic and I'm not happy with it. But you know, right here it looks amazing. This is no sanding, no nothing. So, you know, it could be worse. I'm not too upset with it. I don't want to ramble anymore. I've got the truck pulled back over here. We are going to get the bumper thrown back on it, get our tag mounted back up, and then I will figure out what to do with our tag lights. Can't scratch the new paint. I would be devastated if I scratched this beautiful paint. I hope you guys know what sarcasm is. I'm probably talking to myself. This is all going to be a time lapse. So yes, it's a little lopsided, but my jack is in my garage, and I don't feel like bringing it all the way around here, so I at least got it pulled out. I'm going to pull it up to the front yard, loosen the bolts, jack this side up, loosen the bolts, pull this side out, get it as even as I can get it. It doesn't have a lot of up and down adjustment in the mounts, so I'm sure it's still going to be a little lopsided over there no matter what. I mounted this up and welded it by myself, which is where stuff like this comes into play, because I'm not able to back up and look at it, because I have to hold it and tack it, things like that. So I'm sure it's going to be a little off. I mean, like, for instance, right here is pretty even with the body line. You come over on this side and it's tucked in, so this really should have been pulled out just a hair to match up over there, but you know, what can you do? It's already done. It is definitely a 10-footer, but I mean, even at like 7 foot right now, it looks mid 7 out of 10. I'd give it all right. So if you're wanting to paint match your own stuff, you know, don't follow anything I did in this video to watch someone else's video that knows what they're doing. I'm joking, all right? But for real, like on a real note, if you're wanting to do this yourself, make sure you have the right equipment, make sure you're prepared. Obviously, if you're like me, you're a DIYer, you're not gonna have a paint booth, you're not gonna have a enclosed shop to work in, you're not gonna have these things, and I know I'm making excuses, but that's why I painted it outside. I set it up on some sawhorses that are like $4 at Harbor Freight, and I just went to work with it. My paint gun is completely trashed. Honestly, it needs to go in the trash, but you know, for regular traffic, this looks pretty good. And like I said, this is a work truck. This thing spends its whole life hooked to this trailer right here, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm not heartbroken. I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it. It's just how it is, and I'm happy with it if I don't look at it. So if you guys went on to enjoy this video, if you got a kick out of it, you learned 1 or 2 things from the 50 things I preached in this video, go ahead, drop a like on it, hit the subscribe button, check out other videos. In the future, we've got some things coming for the truck. I would like to paint match some taillights. I would like to paint match the mirrors. I want to do all these little things before we paint the whole truck. That way I can find a paint gun that works the best, and I'm not dealing with stuff like this when I'm spraying the whole truck. I would like to, when I go to spray the whole truck, not have the issues we had today. Honestly, for painting this bumper outside, I didn't get a lot of junk in it like I thought I would. When it comes time to paint the truck, I'm going to buy a bunch of plastic, lay it on the ground, set up a canopy if I can, and paint it under there. It's a toss-up if it's going to work good or not, so you guys stay tuned for that. Hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.